Hello everyone. Welcome to the SBAC meeting for December 14th. Thanks for everyone for joining in. The clerk has already done roll call, but we have a few new members as well. Three new members in total that we'd like to welcome to the committee. Derek Hewitt is our new citizen member. Thanks for joining. Eric Melton is representing Laurier University, but is unable to make it today. And Keith Parody is representing Conestoga College. So welcome to the new members. Just to check, who do we have on the call today? Do you just want to do a quick introduction for everyone, for the new members anyway? I see Gregory. Good
afternoon.
Afternoon. And the other committee members, so Taylor.
Hello.
And we've got one other Brantford panelist there. We probably need to change names.
Who's that?
Change your names.
Could anyone that has Brantford panelists please change your name? Can you change it from your end? Yeah, I can, but I'm driving. Oh, is that Andy driving?
Yeah, given he's driving, that's probably okay. He's already introduced himself. Welcome Linda to the call.
Hi.
And Councillor Martin, welcome as well.
And welcome to the new members.
All right, thanks everyone. So we'll just go over quickly the rules of procedure. To begin, this meeting is held in a hybrid format in accordance with the electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. The full corporate policy 050 is regarding electronic and virtual meetings is available online to review. Staff and delegates are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. Members of the committee shall indicate that they wish to speak by physically raising their hand. Members who are present in person will be given an opportunity to speak first, followed by virtual participants. All members of the committee will vote by a physical show of hands. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the results of the vote. In the event a connection service interruption occurs, we can recess for 15 minutes to regain quorum. Although if quorum is not achieved, then the meeting will be adjourned. All rules and delegations are in the city procedural bylaw. I forgot to mention as well, I'm David Kielstra. I'm the chair of the SPAC committee as well. So welcome as well to the members. The declaration, we don't have any declarations of conflict of interest for this meeting. Does anyone, I don't have anything listed, but does anyone have any on the call there? Seeing none. For presentations and delegations, there's none on the agenda today. Although we do have three items for consideration tonight. And the first one is the City of Brantford Fleet Emissions Reductions Initiatives.
Mike Spicer on the call, Kristen? Sure. Oh, there he is. So okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so at the request of the chair, we've prepared this report for you today about the measures the city is taking to reduce emissions from fleets. So we have our Director of Fleet and Transit here, Mike Spicer, who can give a summary of the report, and we're all here to take any questions should the committee have any. Take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Guggen, and through the chair, thanks for the invitation and pleasure to be here this evening. So the report basically will outline what the chair asked for us to provide what we've been doing since 2018 in regards to reducing emissions. A number of initiatives have been identified to help reduce emissions within the corporate fleet. Short-term goals were identified to help reduce emissions. That included optimizing our fleet, converting our light-duty vehicles to electric, implementing an anti-idling policy, as well as converting, we've just begun the conversion of looking at converting our transit fleet from diesel powered to electric vehicle. The report also talks about some of the other vehicles, the electric ice resurfacing machines to electric utility vehicles, In total, 14 have been converted over, including inclusion of the EVs. We've also completed an annual review of our fleet to eliminate or redeploy unused or underutilized equipment. We've also implemented an assessment to right size fleet vehicles. That process will help us determine if a vehicle is needed to properly assess the right size, type, and power source of the vehicle. And as I mentioned off the top, in November, the report was approved for the anti-idling policy, which allows us now to have gas-powered vehicles idling for no more than 1 minute, or diesel to a 3-minute stature. So happy to answer any further questions that you may have in regards to the fleet.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thanks for joining the meeting. Are there any questions of staff regarding the report for this table? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, was there not already a anti-idling policy in place? It seems to me we did that several years ago.
Through the chair, I do believe that there was an anti-idling policy. We've kind of updated it and taken more proactive approach to ensure that all departments are following the guideline and ensuring that every person driving a city vehicle is well aware of what they should be doing in regards to reducing emissions in our fleet.
So having a guideline and ensuring that it's followed is a whole nother process. So you're getting on board with that. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions for the staff?
I do have a question.
Oh, sure.
Was there any reason why you're going with EV and not skipping right to the end result and going to hydrogen? Or in the meantime, especially for the city buses and the larger equipment with larger engines, running them on, it'd be nice to be RNG, but running them on CNG until the city gets enough RNG that they can run on RNG, because that is a net zero process and you don't lose any of your actually you get better kilometers and you don't lose any of your power with CNG and RNG. And it's an easy conversion from CNG to RNG to a hydrogen vehicle. So it kind of seems like we're spending a lot of money on a middle goal when the end goal for all vehicles will eventually be hydrogen.
So through the chair, I guess the simple way to answer that question is electric is just one alternative source that we're looking at. But you're right, currently we're looking at all types of sources and we're trying to do a business case on each to determine what the best viability is for us and how we would to economically reduce emissions and not just we're not just settled for electric vehicles, because as we're seeing, especially in the transit industry, there's many transit companies that have gone through a process that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. And now they're realizing that there's other ways and other means out there. And, battery life and battery, some are successful, some are not. So we're taking a more cautious approach in regards to moving through, and electric is part of it, but we are also looking at other sources as well, which include CNG and hydrogen.
Okay.
Councilor Martin?
Yes, thank you. The previous speaker seems to think that hydrogen is the ultimate end game, but I'm not convinced of that. If you could tell me where they're drilling for hydrogen, I'll accept that, but
You don't drill for hydrogen, that's not how hydrogen is produced.
well, that's my point. Hydrogen is an energy carrier, it's not an energy source. To say that's the ultimate solution is a bit of a stretch, in my opinion.
Make
We're
hydrogen
not,
vehicles out of water.
Let him finish.
Sorry.
there is no emission from electric vehicles. So to say that hydrogen is the ultimate solution, when you look at the return on energy for electrolysing hydrogen, it's about 30%, which is very inefficient. You're far better off to use the electricity to recharge batteries. So to say that hydrogen is the ultimate end game, I think is quite a stretch. The hydrogen solution, nobody's convinced me yet that that's where we're ultimately going. And compressed natural gas is more polluting than electricity is. So to say that we should not consider electric is a bit of a stretch. I think that's our best option at this point. And I commend staff for bringing a report on looking at electrifying our transit fleet.
Gregory, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to address Councillor Martin's thoughts. Electricity plays a role, and I think hydrogen will become part of that as well. But I don't think that we should get ourselves to say electricity is emissions free. We are very lucky in Ontario that so much of our electricity comes from dams and hydro sources. But let's be clear, in the peak of the summer, when everyone's got their air conditioning on, that electricity is being created by natural gas plants. As the nuclear situation, as those reactors come offline, as they get refurbished, this province will become more and more dependent on natural gas until such time as an alternative, hydrogen being one, comes to the fold. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Taylor, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that, even though we can potentially make an argument that the actual use of EV vehicles may be emissions free or reduced emissions, the actual process of mining lithium and creating batteries, and then also the fact that EVs cannot be recycled is also a really big issue that we should be keeping in mind. So again, thank you staff for considering all options, because I agree that EVs may not necessarily be the final solution.
It's a good point. And I just wanted to just quickly bring it back to questions for Mike before we open it up to more general discussion. In terms of Mike, what is the current, do you have it, I don't know if you have it at hand, but what's the current mix of our vehicle fleet right now in terms of EVs and I didn't see it in your report necessarily. If you don't have it at hand, that's okay, but if you kind of have an estimate. Oh, you do? Okay. I hate putting people on the spot, but.
He's on mute.
Oh, he's on mute, yeah.
Mike, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I believe I can answer that question. So 14 electric vehicles, 2 ICE resurfers, 2 utility vehicles. Of the 14 vehicles purchased, 10 were expansion vehicles. The other 4 electric vehicles were purchased as replacement vehicles, taking 4 gas-powered SUVs and a compact pickup truck off the road. ICE resurfacers that were replaced, that's hard for me to say, I'm sorry, were propane powered. And the utility vehicles were diesel powered. And Fleet has 2 fully electric pickup trucks on order, scheduled for delivery in 2024, and that will take 2 other gas-powered vehicles off the road.
That's good to know. And I mean, for the EVs, it's is it hybrids or is it plug-ins? I don't know. Do we have any of those plug-in ones or not?
Yes, we do. And future purchases will look at a combination of hybrid or fully electric. As you're probably aware, supply chain issues are still a concern, although they are easing a little bit. So we are looking at trying to find out what type of vehicle is readily available. And a lot of times we're jumping on that pretty quickly to grab onto vehicles because they are up for grabs pretty quick by others.
I see Councillor Martin has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question through to Mike. What make are the pickup trucks that you have on order? Because I don't think the Ford F-150 is getting very good reviews.
Through the chair, Councillor Martin, I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that information with me, but I can definitely get back to you on what vehicles are on order.
Thank you.
I think, in terms of, the next question, are there any constraints right now? I know, hydrogen was mentioned as one possible source, but in terms of evaluating what is the best purchase, for vehicles. I guess that's probably taken into account as well if we have the infrastructure for it, but, is there plans to, have, plug-in charging stations for city vehicles, to enable that as an option?
Yes, through the chair, yes, that is an option that we are moving forward with. And again, depending upon the vehicles, and also depending on the location, will determine what type of chargers that we will get and where the charging stations will go. And from the bus perspective, we're still analyzing that. We've taken a little bit of just kind of a step back. We haven't stopped, but we've taken a step back because of all the issues that we're seeing happening industry wide. And we just want to make sure that as we pursue electric vehicles in our community, that we do all of the kind of background work and provide council with all of the information so that we can make some very good decisions based on, lessons learned from others. And that's one of the big initiatives that we're working on right now in regards to power supply, in regards to the types of chargers, in the types of battery life and all of that stuff. So it's not that we're slowing it down because we're not sure where we want to go. We're slowing it down because we're taking an awful lot of what we learned from other transit agencies and trying to determine that it's a large investment. And we just want to make sure that we provide council with all of the information so that they can help guide that decision from an informed perspective.
Is there any other questions for Mike before we table that item on the floor? Not seeing any. Can I have a mover and seconder to place the item on the floor? Councillor Sullivan, and, Taylor? Thank you. Okay, so that is the City of Brantford Fleet Emissions Reduction Initiative be received. Do we have any further discussion, I guess, as a group regarding this or takeaways? I think, one of the reasons that we're happy to ask for a report, from Mike's team was, at our last meeting, we identified that, fleet emissions corporately was quite high. I think it was 46% or something in that realm. So I think, definitely some initiatives here in the right direction, but I think we're kind of looking for some more discussion about next steps that we can encourage greater reductions in the emissions. So so that the next annual report, we could see some declines and working towards the city's overall goals. So if you have any other thoughts on kind of next steps or things you'd like to see that Mike and his team might be able to take away, I think this would be a good opportunity to discuss those. Certainly, one of the things that I was identifying there is just to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, that when the decisions are being made, city staff can identify that they are implementable, that they've at least been considered broadly, that some of these options can happen. So certainly things like hydrogen or plug-in EVs are options. But you wouldn't want them to be disregarded just because we don't have the plugins, right? So that's, I think, just one example there.
We did a project with the city of Hamilton many years ago now. We ran gas to their bus depot, and they used natural gas and with a mix of RNG that they produce in their transit system. And that was gotta be 8 years ago we did that now.
And it sounds like most, if not all of the buses in the city are diesel. Certainly there's some opportunities there, for electric or hydrogen in the future. So, I'd encourage, the city to look at some of those options. Refurbish options from other communities if they're no longer using them. Any other comments, before we move on from this topic? I'm not seeing any, so I think we can vote on that, vote on, receiving that report, all in favor? And, I don't see any opposed, so, that has been received, that report. Thank you. The next.
Sorry,
item
Mr.
on the-
Speaker.
Oh,
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. I didn't have a chance to vote because of the delay. Would you mark mine as an abstention at this time because I'm not well versed in this and I didn't want to make an improper decision, but I will go down as an abstention.
That's okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 2, City of Brantford Transit Optimization Study.
And
Okay.
again, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Thanks again for allowing me to speak about something that I'm very passionate about and very excited about for the city. This optimization study will give us an opportunity to completely redesign the city transit network. It has gone far too long, very stagnant with not a lot of growth. Not a lot of proper growth, not a lot of proper thought into what the ramifications of our network will be. So this gives us a great opportunity to redesign and reimagine what our system will look like. And as it relates to this committee, we're also going to focus on the increased efficiency and improved service levels, which will create a more reasonable alternative to personal vehicles for travel through the city. So that's something that we're taking a very, very honest approach to in regards to travel time, in regards to origins and destinations, in regards to street network, street design, how that goes. So part of that will allow us to make some informed decisions. Additionally, part of the study, we're also looking at the vehicle type for service, which you just spoke to in the last comment. So we're going to review that. Basically, not all transit needs to provide 40 or 60-foot vehicles. We don't have 60-foot vehicles here in Brantford, but we do have all 40-foot buses. So there are plenty of alternatives that would allow us to look at the vehicle type, and we'll analyze some options for micro transit and on-demand service as well. Part of this whole redesign will be not only to allow for our transit system to be efficient and effective, but also allow individuals to have a choice of how they move through the city. And what comes along with that will be, time on the bus, frequencies, the type of bus that we're using and in different areas. So we're very, very happy to be reimagining and redesigning our system. And along with that, there will be a very large focus on types of vehicles, vehicle fuel, and so we're looking at this to allow us to be able to provide the network so that it meets the need. So currently right now, all of our buses run on diesel. What's the impact if we were to look at other sources of fuel as well? And in some cases, electric is a great alternative, but we're going to look at all of those options that I mentioned in the previous report in regards to analyzing that, because last thing we want to do is set ourselves up for failure and create network that's not susceptible to alternative fuel sources. So we're taking a very, very honest and very, very hard approach to how we want to redesign Brantford Transit and how we want the residents to be able to utilize it, and not just because we need to have a transit system. We're wanting to make this very, very attractive for people to be able to walk, ride, cycle, and also use the bus. So it is an alternative to our community, and I'm very excited to be leading this with our consulting firm. So again, happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff regarding this report? Linda?
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, you've been mentioning bus, bus, bus. However, are we looking at any other forms such as light rapid transit or anything like that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not at this time.
Taylor, you have your hand up.
Thank you. We have been speaking about buses, and when we talk about the transit service, are we just talking about the bus system, or are we also considering things, or maybe this is a different department, but we've had an increase in bike lanes that have been put in. Are we looking at potential bike share or bike rentals throughout the city, or are we just talking about the bus system?
Through Mr. Chair, this study is only looking at the transit network and the transit delivery model. We also have other departments within the city that we work with. So when we look at active transportation or we look at bike lanes, we look about the kilometers of roadway that we share. We definitely take that into consideration, but transit is specifically for this study, looking at how we can provide a more efficient network for the city.
Thank you.
I can add to that as well through the chair.
Yes.
We did actually, Taylor, just have our active transportation master plan for the city approved a couple of months ago, and it's the first comprehensive plan for active transportation we've ever had in the city, so it was very exciting. And I can't remember off the top of my head, it's a different department, but it lays out the groundwork for the future of active transportation, including looking at things like bike share, partnering with universities and other partners to improve the cycling and on-road, off-road network. So that is being taken into consideration in other ways.
Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, to Mike, through you, Mr. Chair. I probably already know the answer to this, but I want to ask it anyways. Obviously, we're looking at moving away from a non-combustible with diesel. And the potentials that we could be looking at are natural gas, whether it be propane, whether it be electrical. Are we also incorporating into our study the different types of fire prevention with these other sources of energy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely, Councillor Sullivan. That is definitely part of all of that as we prepare.
I figured as much. I just thought I'd ask.
Never hurts to ask, right? Does anyone else have any questions of Mike? Okay, so can I have a mover and a seconder to place this item on the floor? We've got Taylor and Councillor Sullivan. Thank you both. So that is that the City of Brantford Fleet Emissions Reduction Initiative be received. So any discussion within the group regarding this study? One thing that came to mind when Taylor was mentioning her comment is that it'll be good to see the bus system certainly tie into different modes of transportation and make sure that stops are aligning with that and that people can make easy use of trails and then use the transit system as well. So I've seen certainly lots of buses that have bike racks on the front, but also with stop placement and that, it'd be good to have them near areas where individuals like bike and along, are many bike paths in the city. So I'd encourage the city to continue to look at the best stop locations to line up with our trails, because we do have quite a few now. Just point of comment anyway. And I think that the study is fairly early on, so if there are any other comments, that certainly let Mike's team know. And I know there's a public engagement session, some engagement opportunities for the study as well. So I think this is more of an information gathering exercise, but hopefully we can hear more about this as the study continues to move forward. So. Not seeing any other comments, so I think we'll hold the vote. that the city of Brantford fleet emissions reduction should be received. All those in favor? Seeing all hands up, and none opposed, so the item is carried. The last item, for, in consideration is the, which one? Oh, I think I read the wrong sheet. The development of long-term, solid waste and landfill operations management strategy.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we.
thank you, sorry,
No,
yeah.
no, that's okay. Through the chair, we did have a request following the last meeting, in response to the emissions inventory that we had provided to the committee, where we presented the emissions reductions from various streams. There were some specific questions about our landfill and our solid waste program and the measures that we're taking for our strategy in general. So we thought it best to bring in our director and managers of that department so they can speak to those items. So we have Selvi Kongera and Derek Walker to answer those questions and provide an introduction of the report.
Thank you, Gagan, through you, Mr. Chair. So in the report itself, there are two questions asked. One is, I'll just go through what's being asked, and I'll provide a response to each item. So the first question was, what are the efforts that can be made to reduce near and long-term similar, right? Like how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of the landfill and address the increasing emissions trend. And the second question was, the Waste Management Division, the climate change staff provide an update on expected landfill capacity limits and provide ESBAG comparative research into bag limits and other solid waste reduction strategies. So the first question about, speak at the owl, last time, yeah, if I speak this way, you can't hear, right? In terms of reducing the near and long-term greenhouse gas emissions, next year, we'll be going through and undertaking a long-term solid waste management strategy. You may be aware that our council approved a vision for our waste management program. That is kind of the long-term goal of zero waste, but 70% diversion by 2050. We're at 35% diversion, waste diversion right now. So basically doubling the diversion rate by 2050. So part of that effort is what the Green Bin program is, one of the biggest initiatives that we undertook to reduce the emissions. So as you know, the organics, if we don't collect it, they go in the landfill and it adds to the emission. So that's a big step we took in reducing the emission. And for a long time, we have been, at least since 2010, Councillor Martin is very well aware that the city has been collecting the landfill gas and we produce electricity from it. So that's another way we capture the landfill gas and avoid emission. And the city also went in and installed a cap. It's kind of a clay material we put as a cap on top of the landfill to prevent any gas from escaping the landfill. So we can only put a clay cap only where the landfill activity has been completed. We cannot do it where we are working currently. So we've completely put the cap on the parts that has been finished in use. So we have other parts, we call it as phases, like, parts of the landfill as we go, keep filling it in. So the parts of the landfill where we are currently working, we cannot put a cap on. It takes 10 years, 5 to 10 years to finish it. So once we finish it, we'll go and put a cap on, we call it as a landfill mound, on that mound where we finished filling to the height that is regulated, and basically the width and the height like a mound that's regulated by the ministry through our ECA. Once we finish, then we'll put the clay cap. So until then, it is like work in progress. Where we are working, there's going to be emissions. So the numbers you saw were the emissions in the area where we're currently working. So, in the memo that we sent to you, we, mentioned that there was a error in the gas calculation. So that kind of showed we have an increasing emission in the original report. But we corrected and the revised number was given. Basically, the emission numbers hasn't changed like from last year to this year. So the only thing we can, like right now, what we're doing is as we fill the enough height we have to fill before we can put a pipe through and start collecting gas. So until then, like as soon as the waste is produced in your home, it starts to degrade and it produces gas. So what's accounted here, showing all the numbers in the report, is from the time the waste comes to the landfill, as it keeps piled up in our phase where we're working on. But also keep in mind that every certain height we fill, we put a clay, like a soil on it. It's not like a clay, but soil on it to cap it. So there are efforts made to cap the emissions as we work through, but they're not as strong as, say, maybe a clay cap, which we'll do at a later date. So in terms of our long-term greenhouse gas emissions, we will be doing a long-term study to kind of basically create a pathway or a roadmap on how we get to the 70% diversion by 2050. And part of that also looking at the landfill or greenhouse gas emissions and anything we can do in our current practices that we could change with the new technology or whatever that has come up, that we could find a way to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And we'll come to you, we'll go through public consultation. We'll also come to you for consultation because you are kind of the rep for public as well. So we want to take your input and public input and create this roadmap for our long-term waste management strategy. So in terms of your second question, where it asks about landfill capacity limits, we do have in our ECA that talks about, we kind of use 55% of our landfill space. We still have 45%, but we do want to run calculations with our current population growth projections and everything to see what is the within the approved ECA limits, how many years of life left and all that information. And also part of the long-term strategy will look at bag limits. So you've seen that we, our rollout went well with the green bin program, but that's just a first step. So we're seeing like in the first month, the 200 kilograms or material collect and everything, but realistically, we do want to achieve much higher numbers. But that's something, an effort, ongoing effort we have to go through based on other municipal practices. And maybe that's why I'm thinking you're asking this question too, is that we, in other municipal practices, what they have said was you got to reduce the bag limit. You have to reduce the waste collection frequency, keep the organics weekly, but reduce the garbage collection bi-weekly to improve the waste diversion rate and organics diversion rate. So we will definitely look at all those options next year when we do the long-term strategy. And it's supposed to, give us a roadmap on implementing step by step and in getting the 70% diversion target by 2050. So really, we don't have a whole lot of information today, other than to say that next year we'll be doing the long-term waste management strategy, which is going to kind of address a lot of these questions that you're asking.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff? Councillor Sullivan? Do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, through you to Selvi, just a quick question. How many active cells do we currently have at the landfill approved by the province already?
The entire site is approved now, so there'll be an additional 4 cells.
And under our current collection habits, When do we see that becoming, the landfill becoming full, those cells?
I can give you a ballpark where we sit now, but as Selby said, when we do this study, we'll take into account the city's population growth. The new numbers we were given are much higher than what we calculated before, just with the growth of the city. Any number I would give you now would be a pretty ballpark. I'm not super comfortable with the number, but you're around like 30 years maybe, but again, like we'll get a hard number when we redo. Just the population growth is much higher than what we've ever calculated before, so we have to kind of go back and review that.
All right, the reason why I asked is that I know Brant County applied for a new cell in 2008, and they're still waiting on a provincial approval. That's 15 years in the making. So
Okay.
they're forecasted, I believe, to be full by 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So I just don't want to see us running into that situation down the road. If we need to up our proactive diversion by limiting bags, then that's what we need to do.
And through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Sullivan. So exactly that's our plan. So once we look at the new population numbers, so we look at how many years left, then we'll start the process of expansion if needed, to keep our capacity, the maximum we can get out of our existing space.
Awesome, because one thing we all know, the province is not quick on anything they do.
Thanks for mentioning that, Councillor Sullivan. Any other questions?
Point. They probably won't get permit to expand their landfill. That is why Owen Sound still sends their landfill to Michigan, because it was 25 years ago since I lived there, and province basically told them flat out, no, you will not get a permit for a new landfill. And when you're doing your study, St. Thomas has a great
Study done.
They have a great program.
Okay, we'll take that into account. So the reason, and through you, Mr. Chair, why the hesitation is that as much as the population has grown, we cannot go linearly and reduce and say this is the capacity, because we have implemented organics diversion. We're looking at other measures to divert more waste. So it's, we have to look at how much more waste we are diverting to how much space we have, and how many years we can get, and all these, things have to be taken into account in coming up with that number.
In terms of also population characteristics, are you also looking at things like increased industrialization and increased construction waste in the area, contributing a bit more to the capacity?
Through you, to you, Chair, of course, because we are also doing landfill audit this year. The goal is to look at what kind of waste are coming in. I mean, we know to a certain extent what kind of waste come in. If there is any mixed waste, recycle come in, we send them away. Mixed waste has a much higher tipping fee, so people are discouraged from bringing. And we also, the way the tipping fee rate is set, is that any material recyclables come in, it's at a much higher rate, so it's kind of discouraging people to take it to a recycling facility rather than coming into the landfill. If it's a straightforward, there are loads we can reject as well, though, so we also look at those options. But our study right now is to more in-depth to look at the material that is coming to our landfill, to see what percentage has organics, what percentage has other recyclables in there, so we can have an aggressive program to divert industrial and commercial waste as well.
Any other questions before we move to tabling the report? Alright, so can I have a mover and a seconder to place the item on the floor? Councillor Sullivan? Councillor Martin? Thank you. I know we've already discussed it a little bit, but any other discussion related to this report? Seeing any, but I do appreciate you taking the time to explain some of this to us and also walking through it. I think, you know, certainly the high numbers in the last report was something that our group talked a lot about at our last meeting. So I think it's, you know, certainly continue to look at the methane and the capture there, but also just continue to work on optimizing the landfill. I think that's a, you know, great first step for the long-term strategy next year. So
And we've
just
also
keep us
compared with other municipalities to
Yeah.
see, are we totally out of the line? We're not seeing that we're out of the line, we're kind of in the range. For a similar landfill of our nature of operation, the emission seems to be in line with others, so. But that's not to say, you know, not look for other opportunities, so that's part of the strategy why we look at more options.
Yeah, certainly looking, as Councillor Sullivan mentioned earlier, looking long-term and looking at the long-term capacity and working backwards from that, given the number of years, I think it's just in a good stewardship and good practice to do that. So I think that's what this committee will be looking at, and just wanted to hear about other opportunities and other ideas that you have for reducing waste overall. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. I think that's a good place to leave that one. So, the motion then is, that the report, development of a long-term solid waste and landfill operations management strategy be received. All those in favor? And I don't see any opposed, so that is carried. In terms of the next meeting, we have the minutes, from the November 2nd, 2023 meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder for adopting the minutes? Taylor and Andy. Thank you. So that's the minutes from the November 2nd, 2023 meeting of the Environmental and Sustainability Policy Advisory Committee be approved. Any discussions or any errors? Look at that, I'm not seeing any, so all in favor?
I can't vote on that one. I was not at the meeting, so I can't speak intelligently about what is written down.
Okay, so is that an abstained? That's. Okay, thank you. So that's carried. And I don't see any resolutions or notices of motion on the agenda. So with that, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to come to the meeting. Appreciate it.
Have a good day and Merry Christmas, everybody, if I don't see you.
Yeah, Merry
Thank you very
Christmas,
much.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.